Okay, and
Hello
you're
there.
back. No worries,
Lost
Katie.
you
We're
for a
glad to have you
moment.
back. Let me just, for those who also just joined as well, we had uh, over a dozen that just joined in the last 3 minutes. Let me introduce to you our guest speaker for today, Catherine Ng of One Crew, a human factors training services provider in Hong Kong. Katie, over to you. You want to say hi?
Hi, everyone.
All right. Katie, so this topic of mental health for air crew, especially in COVID-19, has been of vital importance to both of us,
Mm.
both you at One Crew, myself, and our colleagues at OSBA. What interested you in the topic of mental health, and what's behind your drive to advocate for mental health?
Thank you for this question, Anthony. Before I begin, may I take a moment just to thank ASPA for creating this platform for us to have a very important discussion. And I know between you and I, Anthony, we've had numerous conversations about this, and I know as a safety advocate yourself, that this is close to your heart. So thank you for creating this opportunity. Um,
Thank
if I
you.
Would it be okay if I answer your question by telling you two stories of my recent experience?
Absolutely, it would be our pleasure.
All right. Um, I'd like to start by reciting an event that happened, and also afterwards share with you an observation I've made in my day-to-day classroom in the last year.
Hmm.
To start with the event, about 6 months ago, a very one of the closest person in my life in the last 18 years or so passed away from a catastrophic accident. Um, the initial shock of finding out the consequences of his death was really unbearable. And because he was someone that was just full of life, he was practically a rock star at work. And he was also a coach and a mentor to many of my aviation colleagues, air crew, and managers. Reflecting back on the last year prior to his death, um, he just didn't seem right. And he, um, he was exuding signs of depression. There was increased self-isolation. Sometimes he had difficulty leaving his apartment. And I started getting close friends and acquaintances calling me, and they were worried about him as he had alluded to and communicated thoughts of having suicide. I remember at one point I brushed a friend off and wasn't distressed about a conversation with him. And I basically calmed her down and said, he's probably just had a few to drink. And, when he wakes up tomorrow and life is good again, you'll be fine. And I think reflecting back, I simply wasn't equipped to know how to handle it. So as part of my healing process, I started to explore the issue of mental health. And then as soon as I started doing that, the stars aligned and I received invitation to attend a webinar about mental health. And immediately after this webinar, I signed up for a certification of mental health of first aid certification. I have to say the hardest part about doing this course was during the role play. And we during the role play, we were given communication tools to help someone in need. And at that time, I started to realize that I was doing everything in the way that I responded to my friend, completely the opposite of what was recommended in it that I now am learning. So, Anthony, that was the event.
Hmm.
The observation, if I may. As you mentioned, I am a human factors training specialist. And in this last 2020, when the pandemic started, I start every class. My classroom of aircrew, there are pilots, cabin attendants. Sometimes we have dispatchers, sometimes we have managers in the class. And I open every conversation by asking them how they're coping with the pandemic. To my surprise, actually, the participants were very open. Some are even very raw in sharing with us that the uncertainty that they're faced during this pandemic is a big stress to them, not being able to plan for their lives, struggle with separation from families, and some of them with young kids and being separated for months, and some even almost a year. Of course, the quarantine, the isolation, the initial getting used to the mental fitness it took to be able to go through quarantine or feeling of isolation. And of course, for some more severely receiving job cuts, as well as pay cuts, being sole breadwinners for the family and having to downsize. So in addition to the classrooms, I've also started talking to my aviation network, um, my network of friends in commercial aviation, helicopter operation, business aviation as well. And what I've discovered in short is pilots are very hesitant to open up and share about mental health issues, even if it's common mental health issues such as I'm going through anxiety during this period, or I go through bouts of depression.
Mhm.
Of
Katie, just to add to a point that you've made, and thank you for
Mhm.
sharing your story. It's certainly an experience I think we can all learn from. Um, I recall this hit quite close to home for our industry as well. If I recall correctly. Your friend also trained many of the pilots and the air crews in our industry. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And in my conversations with pilots, I realized they would talk to their close friends, families, maybe friends of the industry that they feel safe with, but they certainly would not have this conversation with their colleagues, with the fear of the information being then told to the company, and for business aviation, of course, if the clients ever find out.
Mm,
So this is almost a taboo subject. It's a stigma for the pilots. Interestingly, when I speak to the cabin crew, especially my friends in commercial aviation, they say it's almost part of in when the ones that do have the opportunity to fly, it's almost the instead of saying good morning, how are you? It's how's your stress level, how's your anxiety, right? And then they
it's
very
almost become a
openly,
norm.
yeah,
Right.
they share with each other what they're going through, the anxieties. Some share about sleepless nights, depression, and heart
Mhm.
palpitation and things like that. So it's interesting observation. So that's what I've discovered. Of course, now um, this, with uh, COVID-19 and this pandemic extending, and this might be part of the norm now. It is a very relevant topic um, at a professional level for us to discuss this. And of course, with the ASBA members, the people that sign up for this webinar, we hope that we can start a dialogue and also that we're not making assumptions, right, Anthony, that this is real and this is something that's happening. So getting feedback from your members would be crucially important. And of course, at a personal level, I hope that with starting with this series of webinar and getting education for uh, One Cruise clients in terms of the participants in our classes, that we can be advocate to equip people to be able to deal and cope with. And also, if you ever find yourself sitting with someone that says, I have an issue, that you're equipped and you know what to do. Uh,
Mhm.
that, that's a lesson that I learned before it's too late.
Certainly, Katie. I think we also discussed, our common objective here, common goal is to spread awareness,
Mm,
not only for, as you said, for those who may be going through mental health issues, but also for those who may be uh, mentally fit, for
yes.
example, and
Mm,
equipping the mentally fit to be able to better help those who may not be. And so to help facilitate that, we also like to let me take a moment here also to remind others here. Feel free to ask questions along the way throughout the webinar. Type in the chat, and we intend for this to be a discussion, right? More than just a pure webinar. And so Katie and I would also be happy to keep an eye on the chat and address questions as best we can along the way. Katie, what makes this so such a difficult subject to tackle? What can people do about all the barriers here surrounding mental health?
Mm-hmm. If the participants in attending this webinar could also put in the chat box what you think might be some of the barriers, the stigma surrounding for pilots. Of course, the information that I've gathered are that is a taboo subject, right? And of course, within, let's say in Hong Kong, within the Asian community too, that there is a stigma with associating even common mental health issues. I mean, we're not talking about severe mental health, major mental health disorder. We're talking about common mental health issues such as depression, anxiety. There's a stigma around that, right? That if you ever admit that you have mental health issues, you're crazy, right?
Exactly.
So yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
This also brings us to the first question of the day that we have. An attendee asked, in our industry, right? How can we subtly encourage well-being, even if they don't believe in it? Now, that's an interesting question.
Even if the individual doesn't believe that they need well-being, is that
even? No, I believe it's even if the industry, if your industry peers may not believe in it, as if they think perhaps
right?
Mental health issues could be just if you're crazy, if you're loony, for example. What comes to mind as a couple of things that can help educate and spread awareness among our peers?
I think it starts with having a conversation. It starts with opening up and talking about it. Sometimes it's just lack of awareness of the seriousness of mental health as an issue. Maybe because there's not enough data, especially for aircrew. I believe in 2015, Harvard's public health has done an extensive study, and it's one of the kind of more prevalent studies. But since then, imagine if we were to do similar surveys right now to ask our, for me, I just ask my participants and I can gather, I would say almost 65% of my classes this last year have raised issues about their mental health being tested, their mental fitness being tested. However, it would be great if we're able to do more surveys surrounding that so that we can collect data, and these data we can show the organizations that it is serious, it is prevalent. Of course, we can also, with this data, we can also find out that maybe it's just an assumption, and that really the aircrew are mentally fit. So data gathering, awareness program, just having avenues like this where people start to speak up, where we're starting to almost normalize the conversation might be a good start. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Katie. Speaking of statistics and some numbers, I heard you mention the Harvard study. Do you have some data on that you can share with us?
Yeah, maybe I could share with you. Let me pull up the slide share. Can you see the
yes.
Slides? Okay, all right. As you know, actually globally, over 450, almost 500,000 people suffer from mental health issues, mental health disorder. And out of that, 350 million people suffer from depression alone. And depression is a common mental health disorder. So as I mentioned earlier, so this was taken from the Journal of Environmental Health. There was a study done by the Department of Environmental Health in Harvard. And this is what they've done. done, they've surveyed close to 3,500 pilots from 50 different countries. I think half of them are in the US, and then the rest are all over the world. And out of that study, 12.6%, so over 12% met the depression threshold. And in that study, 4.1% actually reported having suicidal thoughts within the past 2 weeks of having conducted that survey. And that was done around 2015 after the German Wings accident, where the first officer was
Yes.
suspected of having mental health issues prior to the crash. Yes, so this would be a study on aircrew mental health. Imagine what this statistic would be today with everything that's going on.
Exactly, and this is, I mean, I'm seeing the figures here. This was, reported figures, right? I mean, imagine the unreported figures, and this was likely prior to COVID-19. I can only assume.
Exactly.
Surveyed over 50 countries.
Thailand has recently done a survey in the first 6 months of 2020, and Thailand amongst the ASEAN region is the number one for suicide, unfortunately. And in this last 2020, there's been a 22% jump in suicide, and of course we might say that COVID-19 might have something to do with it. So.
Definitely.
I'm not talking about aircrew, this is
right.
country.
Right. This is in general. Aircrews are, I can only imagine, especially susceptible to, I mean, they're incredibly high functioning.
Yes.
If you look at both airmen and flight attendants.
And we still don't know with this study how many of the crew are actually sincerely reporting their issue. Because of course this study was done very carefully. It was done as part of a questionnaire about a job, about health. So the mental health questions were embedded as part of like an overall job and health survey. So imagine if you were to do one specifically on mental health.
Right.
First, we have a long way to go. We've got to remove the stigma first, right? We've got to get organizations involved.
Fizzle away at the
yes, and more importantly, Anthony, for aircrew is the regulations, right? So basically, for pilots to be able to be deemed medically fit to fly, they have to have no signs of mental illness at all, even if it's just periodic anxiety, short-term anxiety, where they need to take antidepressants, for example. Even that, they will be monitored by the medical doctors. So
these are all considered as, unfortunately, as serious concerns from the perspective of the regulator for their from the AME, the Aviation Medical Examiners. And for pilots to need to juggle keeping their medical certificates valid and current, and at the same time deal with potential mental health issues can be just a mounting, growing issue for themselves personally and for the industry. And so.
Yeah, let me just pull up a slide to share with the audience.
Please do.
So this, don't worry about reading this whole thing, but I just took this is the Hong Kong Civil Aviation Department. So I'm sure within your countries you'll be able to find out. So these are the guidance for approved medical examiner. Of course, if anyone's found that they have psychotic illnesses, the medical certificate will be denied, right? And of course, I'm sure in the recruitment and in their yearly assessment in medical, they'll be able to assess that. But if you see this, I've highlighted in red, even episodes of short-lived anxiety or a single minor depressive illness where there's no reoccurring precipitation factors were evident, the crew may be considered acceptable for medical certification. But even that, they've got to ensure that they're clinically stable of 3 months of observation after stopping the antidepressant. So
Mm,
imagine if you were going through single minor depressive illness, would you report that? Given that you will have to be monitored, you may be taken offline for um, possibly, and think of is that going to then affect them financially, right? Will their medical then affect their license, and then will they be taken, will the salary be taken
exactly.
away from them?
There's
And
so many
yeah,
repercussions.
and even the ones that are going through physical illness and have their medical removed for the physical illness now go through mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, and then first they have the medical removed, so they may not be on pay, they may not be able to seek help, and then it becomes a
Hmm.
vicious cycle. I'm not sure if I'm exaggerating. I'm just putting this across as a possible scenario. So
Absolutely.
the statistics that we're seeing from the Harvard study, um, could be very minor, and if we compare it to the reality of the situation, given the medical
Hmm.
condition. So we have a lot of work to do, Anthony, in
We
our
have a ton of
industry.
work ahead.
Yes.
Absolutely. Let's go back to some of the questions. I'm
Mm.
seeing several questions here. Katie, can you see them as well? I believe
Yes, I
on
can.
your end. Okay, so let's take one. Let's take them by chronological order here. From Tanis. Okay, let's see here. I'll answer this live. The question from this attendee is, I suppose this is directed to you, Katie.
Mhm.
What were you saying wrong, quote unquote, and what did you learn from the conversations and training as a mental health first aider? What advice do you have for a mental health first aider on what to say for a crew member facing anxiety, depressions, or suicidal thoughts?
Yes, uh, that question is very close to my heart in terms of what I in reflection when I started to learn the tools and techniques. I realized that um, in my case, it was just kind of trivializing the situation. And looking back now, I think I trivialized it to protect myself because this person was very close to me, and I couldn't
Mhm.
cope with recognizing that it wasn't just you know that it wasn't just an issue of drinking, but it was beyond that now, that it's become a mental health issue. So basically, just by kind of brushing it off, trivializing the situation, I think the worst thing anyone could say, I'm glad I didn't. When we did have conversations, there was a lot of care, um, but I didn't want to address anything beyond making sure that I care about him. I wanted him to seek
Mhm.
help. But the worst scenario I would imagine is for someone who's suffering, hearing someone say, "It's a beautiful day out there, life is
Mhm.
great. Pick yourself up, let's go have a great time,
They just have
um,
no clue,
yeah,
I guess, of
right. Not
what they're
realizing,
going through.
rather than empathizing, really feeling what they're going through, because what they're going through is so real for them, and that we may not be able to empathize. In terms of the tools
Mhm.
and techniques, of course, if anyone would like to, at your own time, I think the best thing is if you um, perhaps take up a mental health first aid certification. I love that it's called mental health first aid because for most of us in aviation, we're first aiders. I used to be a cabin crew, so for many years, I was trained on first aid. So just like of applying first aid, you may not be medical specialist, but you know how to, if someone, falls down and collapses, if someone chokes on food, you know how to provide first aid, right? If
Mhm.
someone's collapses, you know how to do CPR. We were taught the ABCs, the airway, breathing, circulation, and all of that. So
Mhm.
with mental health first aid training, is similar to first aid. You're there, you're helping someone through a crisis, you're making things alleviating their condition, you may be supporting them right through their crisis until it's over, um, or you may just simply be there until they can get professional help. So it's mostly about communication tools on how to sit through with them, empathizing, listening, a lot of active listening, communicating without judgment, using very carefully selected tentative wording such as, you know, what my observation, this is what I see, I notice, as opposed to, yeah, you're looking a little disheveled today coming to work, right? So it's more very carefully worded, but also
Mm,
encouraging them, giving them support. And the support could be support in doing, helping them with their groceries, taking care of the children they could be, physical support. They could be support in terms of helping them get information. And also if you can, and the environment feels right for you, as you're helping them through this first aid process, is that you offer to help them with gathering professional information, where they can seek professional help. Also,
mm,
maybe you might need to do some background research ahead of time. I would invite everyone today to start to find information in your organization. Do you have something like an employee assistance program? Could you put up a peer support network? Or are there any kind of government support with counseling, with professional help? Does the company medical include mental health support, and things like that? So you can start researching and doing all of this ahead of, if you ever had to deal with the
mhm.
providing
So,
mental health first aid. So for us, what I started to do, of course, I would encourage everybody to take up a certification, because it's just as a starting point, right? For us, what we started to do is, starting January this year, for as part of our crew resource management training. So every pilot and flight attendant, as you know, is part of the license requirement that they have to go through crew resource management training.
mhm,
And with that, we've incorporated a module on human factors, on aircrew mental health awareness. And
mm,
in that, we look at mental health, we look at the statistics, we also look at mental fitness in terms of what you need to do to be mentally fit. We go through mindfulness-based stress reduction as some of the techniques. And of course, we go through some of the introduction, the communication tools for mental health first aid. And this is just a starting point. And I ran my first class last week, because it's
mm.
just January, and we've received overwhelming positive feedback about how timely and prevalent this is. So I'm very encouraged by that, because my participants are saying this is something that's very timely. So this is not an assumption that we're making.
Mhm.
There's probably some truth to it.
Absolutely. I understand you have had the opportunity to almost on a recurring basis
Mm,
listen to and speak with
mm.
air crew that you're training yourself. And so you're getting firsthand information from the air crew. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
that's correct.
Right. Um,
Hopefully, in the coming months,
mm,
when we continue this series, I might be able to give a more Of course, we don't go into any specifics, but just a general climate that we can see.
mhm. I have a quick question here from one audience member. Do you think mental health, mental fitness should be incorporated with CRM training?
I don't. I think uh, in terms of it is part of human factors. So CRM
Mhm,
comes broadly under human factors. Um, for us, we work with our clients. We communicate with our clients their thoughts on that. Of course, CRM training is already in place. There's already a budget for
mhm,
it. If you want to do a mental health program that is in addition to, of course, there's budgeting and costs and things like that. Having
mhm,
said that, we've already received inquiries from our clients. Not only do they care about their air crew, they care about their managers, they care about the people leading their team as well, and their mental health, and also awareness programs, so that the leaders, the lead captains, for example, can help their team. And then so we approach it two ways, where we're sending a message out through an avenue, like perhaps it could be any of your training that's in place, and you add a module. You can do it as a separate program, as an initiative to make it more important. Like this year, we're highlighting this is so important. We're doing a standalone course. Of course, that depends on your budget and all of that. I would think that a standalone course gets the message across more strongly. So you could do it for Erica. You could run it for your management team as well.
Thank you, Katie. Where do we go from here, Katie? What can we do in terms of individuals on an individual personal level? What can we do to move forward from here?
I think would be a question. It's kind of chicken and egg scenario. If I were to ask this question to a pilot, would you, if we start to speak it, let's just fast forward a year or two from now, and our community ASPA members are all talking about mental health issues as part of a normal day-to-day discussion, right? Similar to back in the past when fatigue used to be taboo, right? Imagine a pilot ever admitting that I fell asleep at the controls. But because we started to understand, to learn, there's a study about fatigue and the effects of the circadian rhythm. We then realized that the rostering system and all of that is almost setting people up to a point of fatigue. And then we've changed the regulation. We've changed all the rostering issues, right? And now we're allowing crew to call in fatigue if they feel deemed to do so. So if we were to use perhaps similar approach with mental health. So we fast forward a year from now, where organizations are speaking up about it. We've run awareness programs. There's still the issue of crew licensing, right? So at the regulatory level. So I guess to answer that question in a roundabout way, I would say until all parties come together to come with a solution and maybe be able to distinguish. Of course, we never want incidents like German wings to ever occur. However, we've got to address the difference between common mental health issues versus major disorders.
Sounds like this is it's going to take a sort of multi-pronged approach to really affect change, from the regulator, first and foremost, to sort of have some sort of regulatory understanding and backing of mental health among your crew. Also from trainers like yourself, specialists like yourself, perhaps the industry associations like ASPA.
Well, actually, Anthony, while we're on that, maybe I could ask you, where do you see ASPA being a part of the solution in this?
That's a great question. It's something ASPA thinks about every day.
Yeah.
There are a couple of things ASPA will do to address mental health among air crew, especially during COVID-19. One of that is we will be conducting an anonymous survey that'll be sent out with support of all the operators in the region, management companies, and their flight departments. And this survey aims to seek a better understanding, gather firsthand data on the industry and the air crew that we're trying to help improve. And this survey will come out shortly. We estimate likely by Q2 of this year. It will be after this webinar. And simultaneously, we have begun to open dialogues with regulators. I think this is ASPA's edge here is, we are constantly in touch with government bodies regionally. And so our specialty is to be able to sort of unite the industry's various voices and concerns and bring them as one voice to various government bodies, be it the CAD, or it could be CAS in Singapore, or what have you. and we will be opening a dialogue, um, a mutual dialogue with the regulators, and that hopefully either we'll get, for example, one of the chief medical officers for the regulator and or a licensed AME, an
Mhm.
aviation
Mhm.
um, not- yeah, AME for the license licensing from the medical perspective. And so if you can bring on people who are responsible for um, initiating these regulations, coupled with those who sign aircrew off on their fitness, whether they're fit to fly, I think this will add a different dimension
Mhm.
to the conversation. The third thing OSBA has in mind is um, to really make this webinar series and this conversation a regular, recurring effort in um, uh, prioritizing mental health. I think this is an issue that I think OSBA has
Mhm.
recognized that this issue has existed before COVID, and it's only through COVID that we have really seen this issue becoming a bigger elephant in the room,
Mhm.
especially beginning last year. And so, um, three-pronged approach for us,
Yeah.
working with the industry, working with the government, and working with people like you as well,
Mhm.
who are specialists and trainers. And hopefully, in that way, we will gradually break the silence, gradually chisel away at the stigmas,
Mhm.
and we will also, of course, rely on the support of our members as well and from the industry. Uh, so look out for that survey. Look out for our efforts in reaching out to regulators. If you think you can help, reach
Mhm.
out to us. Reach out to Katie, who is also a member of OSBA, and OSBA will be here to see this through.
We also had a a conversation, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, where we were talking to commercial aviation specialists. And in the commercial world, there's peer support network that's been put in place, and organizations are encouraged to do that. If you become under EASA, which is the European regulations, you to be able to hold an AOC, you will now have to have a peer support program
Mhm.
in place, right? So a mental health program in place, and with that, it was interesting to hear that for the commercial aviation, a lot of people this year are taking on and seeking help. So that's really encouraging that the peer support networks, the employee assistance program are all fully booked this uh, during the pandemic, right?
Mhm.
So what about business aviation? We had a conversation about, some management companies are very small, or people know
Exactly.
each other.
Some of them only have a
Yeah,
handful of staff,
yeah,
a
and
couple of aircrew on
exactly.
staff.
And the fear of being found out and things like that. And we
Yeah,
had a discussion about whether perhaps ASPA could be an
yeah,
avenue for that.
yeah.
Maybe,
This is
yeah,
certainly an additional, certainly a down the road.
yeah.
OSBA intends to, for example, uh, lead a peer support network
Mm,
that comprise of that's broken down into chapters. So we already have local chapters, let's say China, we have in Hong Kong, we have in Singapore, Malaysia, Mekong region, and to spearhead the creation and the maintenance of a peer support group for air crews per chapter within OSBA.
mm,
That's our
mm,
medium long-term goal. Of course,
mm,
it will take the cooperation and collaboration with our chapter heads. The regulators hopefully will be involved on a chapter level, on a local level. Of course, here's one thing we have to consider. Every region that OSBA covers, which is the entire Asia, have their own cultural taboo and stigmas
yeah,
associated with mental health.
yeah.
Each country is in a different stage of
Mm,
understanding of
mm.
mental health,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so we have to approach and
Mm,
um, negotiate with regulators um, on a per chapter per country basis, and that's what we have begun to do. And stay tuned for that as well. We
mm.
will be making announcements as we progress with our plan to integrate our local chapters with peer support for our crew.
Yeah, yeah. We have a lot of questions here,
We
actually,
do have
and
so many
Anthony.
questions.
There's
I've
one.
I've been
Yeah,
seeing
uh,
these questions come up
yeah.
every few minutes.
There's a question here about what some tools, techniques,
Yeah,
and coping strategies to help people get through
yeah.
isolation or quarantine. Yeah. Mm,
Just so everybody knows, we actually, this webinar is scheduled to end at 11:30, but Katie and I have already discussed this. We will be staying past the time, to address as many questions and to have as fruitful of a discussion as possible. So don't worry about that end time that's been scheduled. This is a matter that's important on a personal level, both for Ozma and Katie and One Crew. So let's
and
proceed to some of the
yes.
questions here.
And of course, for those of you that if you do need to go in the next 10 minutes, you're welcome to you're welcome to approach us. Let me just pull out. Yeah. So this is Anthony's email address at anthony.lam@aspa.org.
Mhm.
And this is mine, Katie, Katie, at onecrew.biz. So you can contact us by email or you can give us a call. So that's just just some information
For
for you.
everybody's reference.
Yes, yes. Otherwise, I'm sure if you're an ASPA member, you can just approach ASPA for my contact details as well. So yes, in terms of dealing with isolation and the quarantine, we do get that a lot. I run classes regularly with crew that are in quarantine, and they're going through their experience and they're sharing it with us live. It is. I will say some of the crew have said to us that by the 10th day, they're almost like momentarily ready to quit their jobs, that it was so
Yeah.
tough. And some say that, the first quarantine was the most difficult, but then they become more mentally fit in dealing with the next quarantine. They're more prepared for it. Some is the opposite. The first quarantine, they enjoy the rest, having a good rest, but the second quarantine, they get very restless. It was wonderful in my class on Friday. One of the flight attendants shared with us an entire video of her going through her 14-day quarantine and how she
Mhm.
dealt with
Yeah.
it, with doing artwork, with yoga, with writing. For some that are able to get, they seem to say that if they have balconies or like a
Mhm.
little area that they can look out, that helps them to have like their little time where they can do their mindful meditation and things like that. So that seems
Mhm.
to help. What other questions do we have?
So one from
Well, someone said here that mental health in CRM, but only limited to stress management module and
Mhm.
sleep fatigue module. Yes, I mean if you're talking about the regulatory recommended topics, then the answer would be yes, it comes under stress management or sleep fatigue. Having said that, for One Crew, we work closely with our clients, so we will cover topics that are outside of the what the regulators recommend, because we want to make sure that the topics that we talk about is timely and it's the issue of the moment. And I think as safety managers, it is
Mhm.
our responsibility as people that put the programs together to not just cover topics year on year with
Mm.
what is recommended by the regulators. We've got to go beyond that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we work with the clients. They tell us what they need in that moment, in that year, and then we tailor programs. Of course, we've got to meet the regulatory recommendations, but we've got to do more than that. So I would encourage you to add on those as topics in CRM and not just meet the bullet point
Mhm.
recommended topics.
I will also like to remind others here that um, regulators not not only are they in a position to improve and lead safety initiatives for the industry, but they're also responsible for commerce, right? So naturally, they have to find a balance between the commercial aspects of, let's say, in this case, aviation for air crews and operators, and also safety. So, their job is to strike a balance. And so, when we speak with air crew as an industry, as an association, it's really up to us. It's up to you guys. It's up to all of us to help educate the regulators, because we are the ones who
Mm,
are, day in, day night on the ground. Um, Thanks for that, Katie, in the chat. We are the ones who are day to day seeing the issues on the ground, and so it is up to us. It is our responsibility to make the regulators hopefully aware of the problems and then work with them to solve the issues. And I believe Edwin had a question about that as well. Is there any action that's been initiated by regulators to have mandatory testing of mental health of their crew? I think that is, again, it is up to us to help educate
mm, mm.
the, the regulatory parties. Let's see
So
what I have here.
in terms of what we need to do, just to put it all in a little compact takeaway,
Hmm.
we need to speak up about this. We need to run awareness programs in through different avenues. Advocate mental fitness and mental fitness in terms of a holistic approach of taking care of the mind, taking care of the physical body with food, nutrition, with the mind, such as mindfulness programs, meditation, and things like that. Also, we've got to start getting equipped to help our peers.
Hmm. Let's see. So we have a couple of ones answered here. I see
Mhm.
some of you guys had the same questions. That is answered. That is answered. Okay. And okay, so we have one here. There are some questions that could be rather technical,
Yeah.
and we will consult with um, other experts that I've
Hmm.
to, and also with one crew, and we'll get back to you on those. Um, there's one question about antidepressants.
Yeah.
And so, for questions like that, I believe, when we bring in
Mm.
an aviation medical examiner, uh,
Yeah.
which is an AME, or let's say a chief medical officer of a
Mm.
regulatory body, then I think we can have a serious conversation about those. Um, there is one here from an attendee. Is there a tool to carry out self-examination to know um, what mental state you're in? That's an
Mm.
interesting question. I think, I'll also preface this answer by saying that let's not forget um, that whatever we have now, the traits we have now in our minds, in our brains, we were evolved to keep them for survival, right? That's just a quick reminder from an evolutionary biological perspective. And so if we feel that we're depressed, it's you know it's there as a tool for us first and foremost. It allows us to recognize that perhaps something may not be right with our environment, right, with our well-being, and so um, you know we can see that as a caution. It's like a caution alert on the flight deck in the cockpit, perhaps, and we can use that as a signal to then seek out resources, seek out help, and so I think if we can just keep in mind that kind of um, evolutionary advantage of being able to be perhaps depressed, to be anxious, it may be useful in this case and throughout human history. So, with this question,
Mhm.
are there tools to help
Mhm.
carry out self-examination?
Mhm. I mean, if you ask the kind of the textbook answer of whether that person is deemed having mental health, even if it's the temporary mental health issues, would
Mhm,
be the textbook answer would be if that person has the ability to wake up and do work in a way that can productively and contribute to others at work. If
mhm,
they are are able to get up and do day-to-day activities like I'm able to get out of bed, brush my teeth,
mhm.
go about
Yeah.
my day, or am I able to have um, relationships, right? Healthy relationships with people around me. If any of these three are affected in a way where you're checking out at work, you're isolating yourself, um,
Mhm,
you're hiding yourself from people around you, you're calling in sick, you're late
mhm,
for work and things like that.
mhm,
At home, you seem to not want. Sometimes you go through bouts of kind of, days and weeks where you just don't want to leave the house.
mhm,
Um, you may be losing weight, putting on weight, sleeping more, sleeping
mhm.
less,
These are
and
all
yeah,
these are
all the
all
signs
signs, all
and
telltale
symptoms.
signs.
And you're isolating yourself. People are calling you up and they're checking up on you. I think that's a good
Mhm,
sign
yeah.
too, right? When like,
Mm,
are you okay? I haven't heard from you in a while. I think this, and you don't feel like you have the energy to be there for people. So I think
mm,
that might be a good indication.
absolutely.
Mm.
Sure. There are quite a few, day-to-day activities that we all do, when we're not necessarily depressed and or going through mental health um, challenges. And suddenly these tasks can become, difficult to do, right? Uh, Difficult to maintain. I think those are good signs of perhaps that give us a rough ballpark of where our mental health is. I think that is an excellent uh, uh, way to measure. Uh, and we have so that is. I think we have another one from potentially the same person. They're just both
Yeah.
anonymous. Okay.
So
Um,
while you're looking that up, the time now is 11:30. For those of you that
yeah,
were able to spend the hour with us, thank you so much. Please stay in touch. Please give us feedback. Uh, any,
absolutely. Please do reach out to us, to Katie, to Osba. You can also reach out to my team at Osba, not just myself. Osba operates as a team. You can reach out to our Chief Operating Officer, Jeff Chang, uh, at jeff.chang@osba.org. Also, Kathy Chu, of course, um, Kathy.chu at osba.org, or myself. You need to reach out to any of us. Don't hesitate. Let's get on with a couple of questions here. And thanks for that, Katie, while I'm going through the questions. Hmm, this is an interesting one. Given the stigmas surrounding mental health and identification, what if there was an anonymous platform where crew members could talk to a counselor without identifying themselves? So I think this brings up definitely our earlier point um, with OSBA's plan to send out a survey, right? It's an anonymous survey. We want uh, to hear firsthand from our air crews in the industry, right? And I think it's not a far-fetched idea. Certainly not a far-fetched idea to perhaps expand that into a platform that um, crew members could then talk to a counselor about. What do you think, Katie?
Yeah, and I think if we were to do this and the two things, right, the anonymous surveys via ASPA as well as some kind of a peer, if
Hmm.
ASPA facilitate a peer support
Hmm.
network program on behalf of the industry, um, that we need to really study very carefully how to do this anonymously, how to protect. I mean, there are references, there are recommendations in terms of if we were to set up a peer support network, how to do that,
Mhm.
how to protect the crew, and of course, I'm sure I know you're already talking to people that have set up peer support network in terms of what's the best way to protect the crew while we're doing this.
Mhm.
So of course, with surveys and things like that, the more um, the more um, open you can with answering the survey, the better the data is. I mean, I'll give you an example. Like globally, 1 in 4 people, right, have gone through some kind of a mental health disorder
Mhm.
within their lifetime. The statistic for Hong Kong is 1 in 7. So you're saying,
This was
oh,
before COVID, right?
this is before COVID, right?
So we
Yeah,
can only imagine now.
yeah, yeah. But the thing is, you might say, oh, Hong Kong people are less affected by mental health.
Mhm.
It's global,
Mhm.
it's 1 in 4, but it's one
Right.
in seven in Hong Kong.
7.
But then again, is that really because of the data that we're collecting? There's not enough people, we're not
Mhm.
correcting because in Hong Kong there's a huge stigma, a cultural stigma as
Mhm.
well. So with that, my point is, if people can feel safe to answer questions in the survey, participate in taking up survey, the
Mhm.
more accurate our data can be.
Absolutely. So yeah, once OSBA sends out the survey, please, feel free to forward it to your friends and to your peers, to your colleagues. We will already be um, enlisting the support of the operators, but certainly with your
Yeah.
personal help, we can get better data.
Oh, and of course, we're not naive to say that there will be reservations for people to
Mhm.
submit this. So
Mhm.
we've got to find a way to make sure that it is 100% protected.
Mhm. Let's see here. We have one question from Christian. What are the best practices do you recommend to air operators or trainers to promote mental health to air crew and other crew members on the ground? Best practices.
I think a holistic approach. Uh, I think with mental health awareness, it depends, right? If you're targeting aircrew, then maybe some statistics about aircrew mental health. We That would be good. So you could incorporate that.
Mhm.
It's got to be holistic. You can look at a common mental health disorders such as depression, the signs and symptoms, anxiety. With that, depression, you could also alcohol dependency. Uh,
Mm.
and
Substance.
alcohol, yeah, alcohol and depression almost works. Either you're already um, addicted. I'm
Mhm.
trying to
Yeah,
find
you
a better word. You're
more.
already alcohol dependent,
Yes. Yeah.
um, and with that, it affects your mental health. Or it could be your
Mm.
mental health that drives you to drink in order to alleviate your mental health symptoms. So it could work both
Mhm.
ways. So you want to cover things like depression and also include
So it can
alcohol.
right. So it can be a downward spiral. It can sort of
Yeah,
echo
exactly.
off each other and amplify
Yeah,
both ends.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, alcohol, substance abuse, incorporate that into your
Mhm.
session. Anxiety,
Mhm.
even things like panic attacks, signs and symptoms, and so these are the common ones. And then if you want to, then you can go into the more severe, like schizophrenia, bipolar, and things like that. But I would, just as an awareness program, cover the common mental health issues,
Mhm.
the signs and symptoms, and then so helping people to look out for that. And then so two-prong approach. How do you as a healthy person help your colleagues in need? And then the other approach is, how do you help yourself? So how do you help
Mhm.
yourself would be, if you're a mental health first aider, you take a lot on your shoulders. So
Mhm.
you've got to also be mentally fit, that you don't end up in anxiety
Right.
and depression while
You're gonna
going
end up
over
getting
helping
getting
someone
affected
else.
yourself.
Exactly. And the second
Mm.
thing is also, how do we help the general population who may go through temporary, I'm in isolation, I'm separated from my family. But once they get together with the family, that that all that goes away, right?
Mhm.
So how do we maintain mental fitness with exercises, mind, where we run in our CRM course as part of stress management, we do run an entire module on mindfulness as a way to cope with stress. There's a lot of scientific study now that how mindfulness can um, yeah, kind of alleviate the fight or flight, the
Mm,
amygdala activation.
mm. Fight or flight. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. We have a very important question here, I think, that goes for operators as well. I mean, this is, we touched on a personal level earlier with our question on best practices. Uh, what would you recommend? And this is from Joanne.
Mhm.
What would you recommend operators do if they're interested, if they themselves are interested in investing in mental health, in mental wellness or crew? That's either employees or in general. Where can these operators start?
If I can speak from my personal experience as a training provider, uh, we, we we have conversations very closely with our clients, and we
Hmm.
do provide mental health awareness programs. For me, sure, it's part of our company service offering, but it's also something that's really close to my heart.
Hmm.
So I've had conversations with my clients, and our clients have asked us if we can help them to put a program together to tailor it specific for their operation. It also depends on their budget. Who do they want to target first? How do they want to approach it? They want to go from bottom up, top down, and things like that. So we can work with our clients. So perhaps to answer that question, if you can go to your vendors, your training providers, that do make sure that your training providers at least have some kind of a I mean, I'm definitely not a subject matter expert when it comes to mental health awareness. I am just a mental health first aider, but I am a human factors a specialist, and that I can talk in depth about it.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so do make sure that your training providers are have also been certified and trained for this, or you can do it yourself, do it in house. You may talk to maybe through ASPA, or you can contact me directly, and I can give you some framework on how you can do this for yourself.
Hmm. Absolutely. I'm seeing still more questions, and then we still have a lot of people here right now. The amount of people here right now will not fit in a small room at all. I can tell you that. So this is definitely a topic that for sure is close to heart for a lot of our attendees, myself included, and for Katie. We have a comment here. I think it's pretty
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Yeah.
it's pretty intriguing.
Yeah.
Um, we have an attendee who is currently out of work due to COVID, and he or she is using time to study online for diploma. This message says, and that person is interested in aircrew and mental health, and that person looks forward to providing aircrew with counseling in the future. And so this person suggests that people can consider using this downtime during COVID, if they can, to uh, sort of lock lock themselves down during this time to understand themselves uh, better as part of the solution to mental health in general for everybody, right? So it really starts by educating ourselves, right? And then from there, once that is internalized, um, and for those who are able and willing, they then can help their peers. I think that is a great point.
Very, I 100% agree with this attendee, and also that is part of resilience development, right? Building emotional resilience, if you will, building that
Mhm.
muscle,
Exactly.
educating yourself, especially this is something that that person's going through, being out of work. That person can relate more, closely than anyone else could, and then using that as a driver to to be able to help others. I think it's brilliant.
hmm I see that we have answered, and each time we answer something and we expand on the answer, we
Mm.
do cover multiple questions here.
Yes.
There's one here that's quite straightforward. What is your opinion for flight crew to be able to cope with stress? Um, is stressing them during their training
Mm.
acceptable? This person asks.
Right. Okay. I guess in terms of like the startle effect training and all of that, right?
Right, right,
Startling
right.
people and all. And I mean, the ones that have done like, for example, they've done like upset recovery training and all of
Mhm,
that. They think that that's brilliant, right? That's the best thing to do. And I suppose for those in the military too, they do have a lot of stressful events for to help them to cope with the situations. And
mhm,
as we can see, there are examples such as U.S. Airways crash with Captain Sullenberger, where his background and all that development helped him through the very stressful situation. But on a day to day, right, we get triggered by stress, and imagine when we restart operation, right? Things are
mhm,
back in full force and all of that. And then we go through our day to day stress. A very simple model to teach yourself that we teach
mhm,
as part of mindfulness is the STOP model. STOP. I can jot that down in the chat
mhm,
later on, but you can Google it. S is stop. Take a deep breath. Clear your mind. Get some oxygen into your head, into your heart. Stop. Take a deep breath. Right. And the O is T is take a deep breath. The O is observe. Observe your mind, observe your emotions, observe your reaction, what you're about to react, right? So observe your mind, your emotion, your physical body. Are you breathing heavily? Are you having shortness of breath? Take a moment, stop, observe, and then proceed is the
mhm,
P, right? So
mhm,
just taking that couple of seconds to stop, take a deep breath, observe what's going on. That's going to reactivate you, and you'll respond. I will be so much better. Sure, you may do that, and you still want to punch someone after, um, but I've certainly tried the stop model numerous times, and that have helped. So
mhm,
of course, from an operational, if you're under very stressful flying conditions, you can do the same. You can stop, but when you're observing your colleague, you're observing yourself, you're observing your environment, you're observing your aircraft, you're observing the weather, right?
mhm.
And all of that, and then proceed, just taking that time.
And let me just also echo Katie's points too. I don't fly professionally, but
Mm,
just I'm just speaking from personal experience as a private pilot. I fly both fixed wing and rotor wing. We do, and for those who
mm,
fly know this as well, very very likely. Um, Aviators will encounter stress either way, so
yeah.
it's not something we can avoid. It's only something we can learn how to deal with. And so when stress is inevitable, we would much rather face that stress in a training environment first, rather than facing it for the first time in the real world
Mm,
environment. And so if I were to try and give as best as I can a yes no answer to this. Is absolutely. I think a certain amount of an adequate amount of stress training um, uh,
mm,
should be helpful.
mm,
You wouldn't want to find yourself stressed for the first time, or stressed in an unfamiliar environment um, while operating in the real world. And so and that is why we have similar training. That is why we practice upset recovery and so on and so forth. It's to uh, learn how to cope with that stress,
yes.
to prepare for a genuine
Mm,
scenario where that one will then likely catch us off guard. At least for the training one, you can kind of expect it, right? So
mm.
that's really the best we can do in terms of training, is to prepare us for uh, the unexpected.
Mm. Anthony, if I could just very quickly acknowledge,
Mhm.
there are numerous participants in the group that are offering their time, they're offering to collaborate,
Oh,
people in the
yes.
Air Force, people that are clinical psychologists. So it's
And
great that the community, the
yes,
members
yes.
are offering their help as well.
Yes, Ozba and myself are elated to see so much support pouring in. We have support pouring in that are private messages to us here. We have support on the public chat here. Um, yeah, it. Thank you for taking your time to participate in such a vital topic. Okay, I can tell you now we have more than several dozen people still here. And Katie, how are you on time?
I'm good. We could
Okay.
answer a couple more questions if you like.
Okay. Same here.
If the participants still have the energy before lunch.
Absolutely. We have a question from Dale.
Mhm,
It's a longer question than the rest, so
mhm.
we may want to individually just read this one
Yeah.
ourselves first. Okay. Let's see, and then I can help digest it and reiterate it to our audience here.
All right. Just to basically the gist of the question is in terms of the aviation community and the professionals in this field, are they able
Mhm.
to succeed in supporting each other through these turbulent times?
Right.
I think currently as it stands, probably if you do it individually, then you can only help as many as you can individually, whether when people approach you or you're offering your help. But if we can do it collectively in a very organized, professional, and more importantly,
Mhm.
safe way where people feel safe to share, and it's all I know with commercial aviation, they work with the unions and things like that as well to make sure that the network is of credible people that can support them. So
Mhm.
yes, I think there are two approaches, right? One, of course, individually we can all go out and help people. We want to make sure that we have received some kind of training, counseling, also um, as well as um, mental health advocacy. We can help individually, um, but also I think we could do this in a more organized manner.
Mhm. What have you seen, Katie, in terms of aircrew or even former aircrew adapting to become more resilient with regards to income stability? Have you seen
Oh yes.
some career switches? What's
Mhm.
how are they planning ahead for
Yeah.
their careers?
Yes, in 2020, as part of our CRM training, we run resilience development, and we looked at emotional resilience, and it's amazing. The things, the positivity. I mean, we see two sides, right? People that are struggling, they lost their jobs got reinstated, they're going through pay cuts, and all kinds of issues. But at the same time, we also see really mentally fit aircrew that are looking at things very positively. They're taking the downtime to really connect with family and friends, to rest because some of them are working very hard over the years. For those that are very lucky to be able to be with their families, they're making more time. They're able to see their children grow at least for this year. And also a lot of them are studying. They're taking up courses. They're writing books. Some of them that have been furloughed or taken unpaid leave,
Mhm.
they're doing other jobs as well. I have flight attendant friends, pilot friends that have nursing
Mhm.
background, and they're
Mhm.
going back into the medical field as nurses, volunteering and helping in this time. It's wonderful.
Mhm. Fantastic to know. Um, with Dale's question about
Mhm.
whether management companies or owners are weighing in on this, that's something we will try to seek out with the operators, with the end users as well.
Well, hopefully, these platforms, if we have any clients or PAs listening, that you can see the importance. At the end of the day, we're here about safety, and we're here to take care of the safety of our community, right? And if we're able to create platform where people can address their issues, especially in the early stages when they're going through temporary, mild mental health issues, the, the success stories are all in early stage help treatment, right? When it gets to a point where it gets severe, it's very difficult to help them. So, yes.
Hmm. Let's see if there's any more. The number of participants has not dropped, by the way.
Mhm.
So feel free to come to us with your questions, any comments and questions. I'm sure there's something. I'm just scrolling up here. The chat box was expanding quite quickly.
The window of opportunity is closing. Perhaps we can take this till say 12 o'clock. What do you say? Before,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then people have
sounds good to
the
me.
next 10, five,
Sounds
six
good.
minutes to
Hmm.
throw in the questions, or even comments. Let us know whether you think this is a relevant topic. We have received quite a lot of feedback that this is timely.
Hmm. If you're on your phone or your computer and you want to reach out, you don't have to always email us. If it's easier for you to find, find us on LinkedIn, for example. I'm on LinkedIn. My colleagues are on LinkedIn. Both Jeff and Kathy, and Katie herself is, of course, on LinkedIn. So just go on LinkedIn. You can just search, OSBA, and you'll find the team there, and search, Catherine Ng at One Cruise. So connect with us. We will be making our announcements from OSBA's side on LinkedIn as well. So you can take that as an additional avenue to stay abreast of our plans.
I've just in closing, I've just put a slide up about
Hmm.
my mental health awareness is
Yeah, let's see it.
important. Yes. Are you able to see the
Yes, I
screen
can.
share? Yeah.
Mhm.
So really, we want to raise awareness, provide information and education to the community, be mental health advocates to break the stigma. Some of the stigma is perceived by the individual, and some of the stigma is very real. The community, the country that they're in, the religion, and all of that is may be a very real stigma. Also, we want to advocate for culture change, that organizations now start to talk about it. Management companies maybe have regular conversations as part of their meetings about mental health awareness. And also, we want to be able to create culture change from a regulatory level with the governing bodies involved.
I have a couple of comments here. I see that about they would like us to show our contact information just a little bit longer on the screen. So we can show Kathy's first, and then we can show mine, just so everybody knows where they can reach us.
And I've also included our email addresses in the chat box.
There's a question for us here, Katie. Or there's a comment. I'll let you read that as well.
I'm sorry.
There is a comment. I see one from AsiaJet.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good, very helpful comment that we can take note as well.
Yes, absolutely. We will be delighted to help you. If I can personally offer you some resources, I'll be happy to do that. If you want to do your training in-house, or if you like to have us as your partner to help you put together a tailored program just for your team, we'll be happy to also put together a program for you. We do have some clients that are already asking us to do not just for the aircrew community, but for the management team and taking care of both parties. So thank you for that, Amru. And perhaps Amru Baku, if you could send me an email, then I can touch base with you directly.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Patrick Roa. Patrick Roa is our newest BOG, Board of Governor, based in the Philippines. And as I mentioned before, we look forward to working with our BOGs and also chapter heads and also our members, of course, regionally to tackle this issue. Got another minute. Let's just double check, make sure we didn't miss anything crucial. Thank you very much, Grace. It was a pleasure for OSBA and One Crew to have you. Okay. Looks like we are good to go. Let's see, no questions. Let me wrap up here and share my screen. I want to thank everybody today on behalf of OSBA and One Crew for your time, for your commitment and your concern about the industry. This concludes the OSBA Aircrew Mental Health in COVID-19 webinar discussion, the very first of the regular series. Keep in mind that we have 3 things coming up. Surveys for our industry, for our aircrew, working with our operators. We will be bringing in medical examiners and or medical officers from regulatory bodies to add a different dimension to our discussion. Of course, most importantly, our medium to long-term goal is to create and spearhead peer support groups organized on a local chapter, on a local level across Asia, hopefully beyond as well. OSBA wants to set an example for other associations, for other parts of the world to do this. If you want to learn more about OSBA and what we do, consider joining OSBA. Committed to uniting our voices in the industry as one. And thank you again for joining us today. We're live from Hong Kong. Thank you to Katie as well.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you. Stay safe, everyone, and stay healthy. Thank you.